Clovercrest Media Group presents a CMG podcast. Keys to the City.
Keys to the city, baby. When you see us, so you know.
Crossed up by Kobe, little floater to Shaq, and then Shaq goes like this, and the rest is history. Pay attention. Don't tell me what to do, devil woman.
But
speaking of those Lakers,
hold on. But I didn't make
I said Denver's gonna win.
Yeah, you did. You said that.
There's no other show like that. Clovercrest is doing great things right now.
Streaming everywhere.
Apps can do a lot of cool things. You could order dinner, gamble on your favorite team, and track your health. You could even get a mortgage. One click and you can be approved. I'm not sure by who or what country they're in. You deserve more from the mortgage industry. At AnyMac Home Mortgage, we believe in the need for live human interaction during a very complex process. The kind of service and guidance which an app simply can't provide. Our customers are more than credit scores and income documents. They're individuals and families who live in and strengthen our communities. Their story is our story, and that story begins in a home. Chris Sawyer is an expert on providing superior customer service and in meeting the mortgage needs of current and future home buyers. With over 18 years of experience in the industry, Chris is able to help customers migrate through the home buying and home financing process by using his wealth of knowledge as a well-qualified mortgage professional. And best of all, Chris is located in Cromwell, Connecticut, where he has helped hundreds of clients in Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Rhode Island make their dreams of home ownership a reality. Visit chrissawyer.any-mac.com. Email him at csawyer@any-mac.com or give him a call, 860-878-8730.
Chris Sawyer, NMLS number 39345, corporate NMLS number 338923. AnyMac Home Mortgage is an equal housing lender. American Neighborhood Mortgage Acceptance Company, LLC. DBA AnyMac Home Mortgage. Lo-Fi Direct. Connecticut First Mortgage Correspondent. License lender. Broker number ML 338923. Massachusetts Mortgage Lender and Mortgage Broker License number MC 338923. Rhode Island License Lender. License number 201128110L. Call for additional details.
Throwing jabs, always full send. Here we go again. Jared, Joe, and Jay's Clovercrest, top three corner man, punching in with a puncher's chance. We find a way to win. The main event, locked it in every Saturday at 10. The overhand is out of hand when it comes to fisticuffs. Slide a hand on the undercard, you'll never see the punch. Uppercut got you missing weight, feet are stepping late. Keep your guard up, feeling faint from a feint. Take a stand and eight, then retaliate. Put up your duke, stick and move, bob and weave. Don't lose hope against the ropes, there's always an escape. Never stay down. One more round, bells ringing, counter punch with your chin tucked and go down swinging. We bringing crosses with no worship, hooks with no verses, combinations with no locks. When you feel the flurry, it's curtains. From scrub scraps to fight stats, relax if you want the facts, cause the best combat podcast is throwing jabs.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Throwing Jabs. Big UFC pay-per-view tonight. Big middleweight main event. We're talking all about the middleweights today. We also got a big, an interesting who you got as far as middleweight UFC fights. We're sticking in the UFC middleweight division. Let's recap last week's fight. Sean Strickland takes the nod in the split decision against Jack Hermanson. Joe, what'd you think of the fight?
Great fight. Sean Strickland, it really is good. And this is what I thought was going to happen. Curious, one of those judges definitely was watching something different. And I got to listen. I like Jack Hermanson. I thought Jack Hermanson fought a really good fight, but it was clear that I honestly thought Strickland won all of the rounds. You know, I thought throwing Hermanson one was kind. I mean, he certainly put the work. I think he got outworked all 5 rounds. But to see somebody really think that he won this fight convincingly, I can't imagine a scenario where you watch that fight and you would possibly walk away and be like, oh, Hermanson blew him out. Not even close. But this is what Strickland does. You know, he talked a lot about after the fight that this wasn't something he was super proud of, kind of a lackluster performance. He was kind of more in there to not get beat than he was to win. And that's unfortunately what you have to do sometimes. And I think that was kind of the game plan that he took. And just to me, handily won this fight.
Yeah.
look good tomorrow, win today, right?
Yeah.
But the problem with that, with this guy in particular, is I didn't care beforehand, and I said that. And I didn't really care during because of what you just outlined. And I don't really care now. No disrespect to these fighters. I know they work hard. I know they're professional. They're just not the guys. This isn't main event material for me. These aren't the guys. It's, if one of us knew one of these guys personally, fine, let's talk about it. But it's hard for me to care about this. I apologize, Strickland and Hermanson, but that's where you are in your career. It's hard for me to care about.
No, yeah, you're right. But honestly, I could see Sean Strickland putting together like a Leon Edwards-esque run here, like just going off and no one really notices it. No one really understands. And he's trying to get a title fight, probably deserves a title fight. But, with how just a revolving door at the top of the middleweight division seems right now, having a guy like Strickland just come in, take a loss from Izzy or Whittaker. Who knows? We'll get to that later. But maybe that would be something interesting, But do you think
he didn't do anything to make you think, let's get this guy in a ring with Izzy. Like, you didn't feel that way at all. He didn't do, and the same thing with Jack Hermanson, who's been a Sean Strickland type for the last 4 or 5 years, where, again, it's like maybe he'll do something cool in one of these fights and he'll have earned a shot at the title. And then you get something like what we saw last Saturday night, which was, again, Strickland just kind of playing it safe. And Hermanson, to me, as usual, just not having enough tools in his arsenal to do anything about it.
So currently 6 and 7, Strickland and Hermanson. They swapped after the fight. Paulo Costa, Derek Brunson, Jared Cannonier, Marvin Vettori, Robert Whittaker, Israel Adesanya are the 6 guys above them. Do Hermanson or Strickland beat any of those guys ever? Costa, Brunson, Cannonier, Vettori, Whittaker, Adesanya. The answer is no. I don't care. These guys, this is not it. These guys are outside the top 6. They're 7 and 8. They're ranked right where they belong. And the UFC got it right when they had them at 7 and 8 and Strickland beat Hermanson and they switched them. Perfect. That's exactly because none of those guys should jump up or down anywhere. That's right where they belong, and they're not going anywhere because they can't beat any of those guys ranked ahead of them.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah. Obviously, listen, right? Izzy's cleaned this division out, and the only reason Strickland is under consideration here is you beating everybody else. I guess Strickland, literally, I mean, I think that's what you're working your way towards, is just being the next guy to get beat up by Adesanya. That's tough. Because, again, look, we're going to talk about the fight tonight, obviously. And, I think this is another one of those where 1 and 2 are so much better right now than everybody else in the division. But I still feel like the gap between 1 and 2 is too big.
Yeah. Honestly, I think the UFC, we'll get to it a little bit. We'll get to it later, but UFC might even be like hoping that Whittaker wins just to get like a trilogy, make a little bit more money out of this fight if I'm the UFC. Yeah.
Izzy kicks everybody's butt and goes up and loses. And if he sits right there for the rest of the time he's active, that's boring. Yes, they're hoping Whittaker can win and bring some excitement to this division because it's not there. You got one guy who kicks everybody's butt that's not 15, 20 pounds bigger than him. Right there.
I don't want to ruin this, but let's say these guys fight tonight, and let's say it's super, super close. It's a 3-2. There's knockdowns, there's takedowns. It's a close fight. Do they run it back?
No.
Or does he move on to somebody like Strickland?
Yeah, he has to.
Floyd looking for his Canelo. This is the whole division's cleaned out, and who's next? And I don't think I should still be risking it in my mid-30s. I beat everybody. Is there anybody out there who's ranked 14th and undefeated so that I can beat them so people can think maybe? So that in Vegas, when they set the lines, they can think, maybe, because that's not what I'm thinking. Izzy's just going to beat all of these guys.
Now, let's say Whittaker wins a close one tonight.
Then you run it back, but that's a stretch for me. Though that 285 is not big enough, dude. Izzy wins this fight.
All right. We'll see. We'll get to that. But going from, like you said, an unexciting middleweight fight, let's talk about the most exciting, the best, the greatest middleweight fights in UFC history. Who you got? Mount Rushmore. What 4 fights are you putting on that? I'll start with you, Jared, this time around.
Number 5. You know what? No. Oh, wait. I have honorable mention Scott Smith versus Pete Sell. I mentioned this fight a few weeks ago. Pete Sell got a rib broken and ran over in the corner holding his. Have you guys seen?
Oh, yes, yeah.
And then he uncorked a shot that just put Drago out. It's one of the greatest finishes to a fight that I've ever seen. It's Castillo Corrales-esque. At the end of the fight, Pete Sell, Scott Smith, that's the honorable mention. The other 4, Anderson Silva, you pick. Anderson Silva is what I have written down, and Scott Smith versus Pete Sell as an honorable mention. Yeah. Now, you guys go ahead and give me your Mount Rushmore, and if it's not littered with Anderson Silva fights that I haven't brought up because I just wrote Anderson Silva, then you don't belong on a fighting podcast.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. You got to have the middleweight GOAT in him. Joe, what you got?
Listen, first of all, let's be clear about something. There's 4 faces on Mount Rushmore, so let's start there, tough guy. So let's just know that there's 4 fights we're picking from. George's St. Pierre, Matt Serra, is the greatest welterweight middleweight fight ever. Wait, what are we doing?
That's welterweight.
I picked welterweight fights. Why did I think we were doing welterweights? Because we're doing middleweights, aren't we?
He's like, I don't have Anderson Silva. Oh, wait. Okay.
I have a whole list of welterweight fights. Don't ask me why, because all we are talking about is middleweights. Don't ask me how I read this as welterweight.
Guys, let's still hear him. I want to hear him.
Since Joe didn't follow the directions for the assignment.
Yeah, I'll do mine, and then, Joe, we can hear your welterweight one. I got honorable mention for me, Whittaker, Romero, 1. That was monstrous. And that, I mean, to set up for Shevchenko, Nunes, that was a great card. But, and then, okay, so then on to the actual list. Anderson Silva versus Chael Sonnen. I mean, really the toughest task prime Anderson Silva had. He was getting beat up and then just pulled that triangle out of nowhere and was able to get it done. And, I mean, that's just why he's the GOAT. That's why he's the greatest. He's up there in just the greatest UFC fighters of all time. But he's definitely the greatest middleweight. This is the other Anderson Silva fight. I got Anderson Silva versus Adesanya. I know it wasn't necessarily the greatest fight, but I mean that's the Tom Brady versus Patrick Mahomes. That's the GOAT versus the baby GOAT.
Passing of the torch, yeah.
Yeah, and I think years down the line we're gonna look back and realize we didn't necessarily appreciate that fight for what it was. So, yeah, I think if you're talking about the greatest middleweight fights of all time, I think you got to put that on there just because of, like, the passing of the torch factor. And then
I pick Jace.
Thanks, buddy.
It's a JC pick, but I really like it.
Yeah. All right, and then from that fight, Adesanya versus Gaslam for the interim belt. Like, that was just war. That was just
made toys.
Yeah, yep. And Adesanya's face after that so swollen. It's crazy to think that he won, but I mean, and then the knockdowns at the end. It was just that was just a great fight just to watch, and I love just going back and watching that fight because it's just so amazing. And then Michael Bisping versus GSP. I the like purist in me, I hate that fight because GSP didn't necessarily deserve it. Where Bisping got the belt and sort of like just, I mean, I'm not gonna hate on him for getting the big money fight, but still, that wasn't a fight that needed to be made. I would have loved to see Bisping versus Whittaker and Whittaker get the belt that way. But I mean, it was still a great fight. It was nice to see GSP come back, and the last time both of those guys Bisping did come back and get knocked out by Gaslam. So the last time GSP was in the ring. But so that's it. Now, Joe, what are your welterweight fights?
Well, I'll get to that in a minute. First, a couple things. Number one, just on Strickland, you notice Strickland also didn't talk at all during that fight until the last 8 seconds. Suddenly he became a big tough guy, had a lot to say. That was the other thing that, if he wasn't going to fight, at least talk. That would have made that a much more entertaining fight.
Yeah, guys, hear that 10-second, they run the whole fight. They hear that 10-second ticker, and they draw a line in the center. They come stand right here.
It's like, all right, buddy, calm down. If you didn't do that in the third and fourth round, you don't do it at the end of the fight.
Bro, how about a bunch of layups on the way there?
Yeah. So I actually was talking about that fight that you were just mentioning, Jace, between St. Pierre and Bisping. It's one of my favorite fights of all time. I also love, as far as middleweight, Silva versus Chael Sonnen. I hate Chael Sonnen. I always have. At the time, I didn't like Anderson Silva, so that was kind of interesting. Henderson Bisping is another great fight. One of my all-time favorites, and I think just for the simplicity of it, Anderson Silva and the front kick to Vanderlei Silva's face is something I've seen so many times over the years that certainly has to qualify to me as just because of the ease with which he beat him and with the simple move that he used to do that. And if I was to do an honorable mention, it would be one of the fights involving Whittaker and Romero. Pick whichever one you want. Those are awesome.
Yeah, they were. I had the first one on my but even the second one, Whittaker messed up his arm and was still just throwing it the whole time. Yeah, it was wild. So many good fights.
Hagler Hearns too. Honorable mention. I don't care that it's not UFC. One of the best middleweight UFC fights ever is Hagler Hearns. I don't care. I can say what I want.
Yeah. All right, but maybe we will have tonight a contender to be on this Mount Rushmore. Who knows? But we will talk about. We'll get into break it down even more. We broke it down a little bit, but we'll get into that. Get our picks right after this message from one of our sponsors.
Do you have a 401k and some savings for future retirement, but don't even know if it's enough to live off of? How much is enough? How often are you thinking about it? The team at JPEX Financial Group can help set your mind at ease. We specialize in creating strategies in the planning and managing of your financial, educational, and investment needs. We help clients pursue their investment goals with sound financial strategies. You deserve a personal, tailored plan. Lasting, meaningful, and open relationships are the foundation of our practice. You've worked hard for your money and should feel confident in your investment choices as you make decisions for your financial future. Your goals are our goals. We are dedicated to your needs and hopes for your future. Visit our website and give us a call at 860-430-5397. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA, SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. JPEX Financial Group, LLC is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services. JPEX Financial Group is located at 78 Eastern Boulevard, Glastonbury, Connecticut.
Coming up Saturday night, UFC middleweight champion Israel Adesanya faces number one contender and former champion Robert Whittaker in the main event at UFC 271. Let's break it down. Robert Whittaker is 31 years old. He's 5'11" with a 73-inch reach and a record of 23-5 with 9 knockouts and 5 submissions. Born in New Zealand and raised in Australia, Whittaker began training in karate at age 7, attaining his black belt at 15, and then switched to MMA, beginning his professional career in 2008 with a first-round knockout. He got off to a solid start, going 11-2 with all of his wins coming by stoppage, but he then lost a decision to Court McGee and was then knocked out in his next fight by Wonderboy Thompson. He then went on a 7-fight winning streak, including a decision over Uriah Hall and knockouts of Brad Tavares, Derek Brunson, and Jacare Sousa. This put him in line to fight Yoel Romero for the interim middleweight title, with Whittaker defeating Romero via unanimous decision. After sitting out the rest of the year due to a knee injury and a staph infection, he returned to defend his title against Romero, winning the entire fight of the night bonus of $100,000 as Romero failed to make weight. He was scheduled to defend his belt against Kevin Gastelum, but had to pull out hours before the fight due to a hernia. He returned in October of 2019, taking on number one contender Israel Adesanya, and despite putting up a solid performance in round 1, he was ultimately dethroned, getting nailed by a counter left hook in the middle of throwing a flurry. He bounced back in 2020, winning a pair of dominant decisions over top contenders Darren Till and Jared Cannonier to put himself back in the number 1 spot, and on April 17, 2021, put on an impressive one-sided beatdown of Kevin Gastelum to put himself into title contention. The current number 14 pound-for-pound fighter in the UFC, Whittaker has some of the cleanest boxing skills in MMA, using a wide variety of feints to set up his power shots, and he also possesses underrated wrestling abilities in an excellent career that's been hampered by constant injuries. Israel Adesanya is 32 years old. He's 6'4" with an 80-inch reach and a record of 21-1 with 15 knockouts. Born in Lagos, Nigeria, he moved to New Zealand at the age of 10, and at 18 took up kickboxing, where he amassed an amateur record of 32-0. Soon he began training at Kick City Boxing alongside Dan Hooker and Alexander Volkanovski, and started competing in both professional boxing and kickboxing, compiling records of 5-1 and 75-5, respectively. He turned pro in MMA in 2012 with a first-round knockout, and after winning his first 11 fights by stoppage, he retired from kickboxing after being brutally knocked out by Alex Pereira. He made his UFC debut in 2017, knocking out Rob Wilkinson with a barrage of knees and punches, and 3 months later engaged in a close brawl with Marvin Vettori, coming away with a split decision. Later that year, he knocked out Derek Brunson with a left hook and followed that up with a dominant win over UFC legend Anderson Silva. On April 13, 2019, he fought Kevin Gastelum, winning the interim middleweight title after a savage back-and-forth slugfest, and 7 months later unified the title, knocking out Robert Whittaker with a brutal left counter hook in round 2. After a convincing decision over Yoel Romero, he blew out number 1 contender Paulo Costa, controlling the distance with his jab and leg kicks and stopping him with a vicious ground and pound. On March 6, 2021, he stepped up to light heavyweight, but despite being the heavy favorite, he was completely dominated by champion Jan Blachowicz, getting outstruck and taken down multiple times en route to a unanimous decision loss. He bounced back 3 months later with a convincing one-sided unanimous decision over longtime rival Marvin Vettori. An exceptionally agile counter-striker, the last stylebender has an excellent stand-up game, setting up his opponents with feints and overwhelming them with a versatile array of strikes from all angles. Will the wrestling skills and power shots of Whittaker be able to show that their last encounter was a fluke? Or will the versatility and technical brilliance of Adesanya carry the day as he continues to demonstrate that he's among the very best in the sport? Tune in Saturday night to UFC 271, and let's find out.
Big shout out to the Vitally Sand making a little appearance at the end.
Yeah. Love that.
But Joe, I mean, we talked a lot about it. You even said before the show you're kind of on the fence. You're thinking both ways can play out. What are you going with?
Listen, I am a big fan of Robert Whittaker. I love this guy, and we've talked about this a lot, Jared. I mean, I think if you take the guys that are 2 on down, I think Whittaker, and he pretty much for the most part has his loss to Israel Adesanya in 2019. His last loss before that was in 2014. Robert Whittaker doesn't lose fights. Robert Whittaker beats the bejesus out of anybody he gets into a ring with. We've talked about this a million times with guys like Kevin Gastelum and Paul Costa and Marvin Vettori. You can't stand in the pocket with Israel Adesanya. He's a lethal striker. Now, Robert Whittaker's one of the best strikers in UFC history. If he's going to try to stand there and throw hands for 5 rounds with Israel Adesanya, this will end early. Adesanya is not a guy that gets knocked out. That height advantage and the reach advantage is pretty staggering here. So Robert Whittaker's got to do the things that Robert Whittaker does. And it's going to be some boxing, and he's going to mix in some takedowns, and he's going to do some wrestling. He's going to have to do that. We've seen when you take Israel Adesanya down, ask Blachowicz, ask Vettori in the first fight. Look at Gastelum. If you don't just stand there and let this guy absolutely destroy you, you've got a fighting chance. The guys that just think they're going to stand there without Adesanya and it's never going to work. It's not going to work for anybody. So my thing is Adesanya all week has been just rude and not fun. He's turning into a villain for some reason. I don't know if him and Kamra Usman got together and decided with Ngannou they're just going to be dicks or whatever. I don't like it. I liked all these guys, and now they've slowly become unlikable, and I can't for the life of me figure out why. Now, that said,
him, Joe.
Yeah, I would love to see Robert Whittaker fight a Robert Whittaker fight, not get lulled into the smack talk of this week. Adesanya's basically explained that Whittaker's good, but still not good enough, doesn't really belong there, blah, blah, blah. And Whittaker, being the guy that he is just sort of, hey, excited to be here. I want to see how much I've improved since our last fight. I think it's a lot. Adesanya admitted it's probably a lot. I think it could be enough. But again, my fear is this guy just plants himself in there and decides they're going to get into an exchange. And if they do, it'll end poorly for him.
Oh, absolutely. So who's your pick?
Yeah, I'm taking Adesanya.
Okay.
I'll say stoppage before round 3.
I totally agree. I'm in 100% agreement. I got Adesanya here. And we were talking a little bit about before the show and how I feel kind of relatable with Adesanya, and it's not just the bullying and the abandonment and the trauma. It's also that I'm just under 5'10". I'm about 150 pounds, and my reach is almost 6'4". So that from the right distance, I'm a really, really tough guy to fight. Schematically, that's Adesanya all day, and his twitch reflexes are next level. Something I totally can't relate to is that, and that's why I really like that Mount Rushmore pick of Silva and Adesanya has to go on there just because they fought, and that was the guard, you know. So I really like that. And Adesanya, I think he's next level. I think if you're not a light heavyweight, you're not beating Adesanya. This is Roy Jones moving up to heavyweight and beating John Ruiz, and then having like the best heavyweights in the game are too big for Roy, no matter how much weight he puts on. But that's what you had there, and he was in the prime of his career and went back down. Andre Ward should have went up to fight Dawson. Dawson came down. Ward beat him. Adesanya, I don't see him losing at this weight class.
Yeah. I mean, he talked about his length and his build, but he's also got the technical. He's a beast technically as well.
Oh, a lot of things I don't have. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of to be. Just to square that up.
Yeah, but I mean, Adesanya, he is the best striker in the UFC today. And I mean, Whittaker's great. I love Whittaker too. And he's just a cool guy. Every time I hear him talk is very interesting. He's an awesome guy. But and he's a badass too. Like I mentioned earlier with the Yoel Romero fight, like he broke his wrist and he was still like throwing it and stuff throughout the fight, and he got like a knockdown. So it's wild. He's a tough guy. He's awesome, but Adesanya is just, like I said, he's the baby goat.
This is going to come down to skill level and who's better, because this is the top two guys in the middleweight division. And it's a clear 1-2 here. Like, there's not even an argument for who could replace Whittaker at 2. Okay? That's how convincing these two are over everybody else. And the idea that he probably doesn't have a chance. Well, exactly. Yeah, another one of my favorite guys who happens to be parked right behind an all-time great. Absolutely, 100%. I often think of these two guys in tandem, Whittaker and Holloway, just for that reason. And I'm big fan of both of those guys. I love the way they go out there and fight. I love the way they mix it up. I love the way that I just love their grit and the way that they fight. And the fact that those guys will eat punches all day and just keep throwing them back, which again brings me back to my initial point. I just think Whittaker's going to want to do it the way a lot of these guys think, Jared, where it's not enough for me to get him down and put him in a rear naked choke. I have to knock Adesanya out. And much like Holloway, Whittaker prides himself on the boxing skills. And my fear is you're going to rely on that too much. And that's going to get you caught. And it's going to be a problem because the other guy's striking, not his boxing, but his striking, it's a little bit better than yours.
Well, and Adesanya could get clipped here. I mean, they're fighting. But I just made a correlation here. Joe, you know what you sound like when you talk about this guy and Holloway is a Joe Frazier fan. You ever met a real Joe Frazier fan? Because if it wasn't for that other guy, we'd all be talking about, hands down, the greatest heavyweight fighter of all time, Smoking Joe Frazier. If it wasn't for that other guy.
Yeah.
Don't forget,
if you're scoring at home,
Joe Frazier punched me in the face once. So I 100% am down for that. I agree with that. And I can tell you, even in his 60s, he still had a hell of a left jab.
That's great. That's great. All right. I mean, it's going to be I'm excited for this fight. It's going to be this idea popped into my head. I want to float it out there for you guys. Whittaker, he came up from welterweight. Say he can't beat Adesanya. Say he gets knocked out again. Could that possibly be an avenue for him going back down to welterweight?
Didn't he miss weight? Didn't he miss welterweight? I feel like he struggled to make that, and that's why he came up. We had I can't remember who it was, but we had a situation like this a couple weeks ago where it's like, you can't make weight, you can't make weight, you can't make weight, you come up, and then you lose to like a borderline top tier guy. You're not UFC material anymore. Yeah, no. The answer is no, that's not really an avenue. He can't beat this guy, and fight Strickland. See if you can get the Strickland fight before Izzy does. There's not much to do for him. Yeah, it's Izzy.
You know, yeah, you're right. I bring up the welterweight
with a boxing glove. This is a great take. Yeah, Adesanya could always get clipped. They're fighting a fight. He's been knocked out once before.
Yeah,
with a boxing glove. Yeah, but again, that said, listen,
He's a bigger glove.
Yeah, listen, he's a hard guy to hit because of his length, because of his speed, because of, again, based on being a kickboxer, right? That's a big thing in kickboxing is to not get hit. This sport's a little bit different from boxing where, I mean, nobody in the UFC fights to not get hit. You don't see the old Philly shell in this sport. You know what I mean? Like nobody.
Well, you can. Like a Josh.
Nobody does it, Jace.
Yeah.
Nobody does it. This is a sport where
Koscheck.
you stop. You're gonna tell me two guys. You're just making my point for me. It's not a style on the UFC. You're gonna get hit in this sport. You're gonna get hit. That's my only point. And so again, every single fight we talk about, there's always a chance the other guy or gal's gonna knock that person out. It only takes one. The Stipe Verdum fight always, that's got to be one of the all-time, like, don't chase people around the ring because if they stick their fist out and you run into it, you're done.
Ooh, Eric knocked down. Back
to
it.
You have to fight controlled. You have to be smart about this. This isn't just, again, Blachowicz rushing in on Santos. Knocked out. You can't run into people's punches. You know my all-time favorite, Czech Congo, Pat Barry. Runs across the ring. The guy's on the ropes. 3 times he almost finished him. Runs into an uppercut and he's out. That's what this sport is, right? Curtis Blades looked good against, who was it, Rosenstrike or who did he fight last? When was it Lewis? He walked into the uppercut. And he was very specific. Like, I'm not getting hit with that uppercut. And he's going to go in and take him down. He got it anyway. That's what this sport is, Jace. That's why there's always a 1% chance you might be right on any of these fight predictions. Because, yes, it wasn't going to happen, but could someone have slipped Ronda Rousey going for an armbar when she was on that rampage? Sure. Did it come close to happening? No. Just speaks to how good she was. But again, it's always the possibility someone's going to get knocked out. If you go in there and you think, I'm going to try to slip Adesanya somehow in these 5 rounds, and that's your strategy, you're probably getting beaten up a lot, especially, again, based on the height and the reach advantage. It means you have to be close because if you're going to slip them, you got to be in the pocket. And if you're in the pocket, you're getting beat up by him. You see the problem here? So it's hard to knock him out because you can't be standing that close to him and think he's very good. That's the problem. I love Robert Whittaker. In my heart, I believe Robert Whittaker can and will win the fight tonight. But I'm on a show. And I have to be back here next week to explain myself. So I'm going to tell you, I believe Israel Adesanya is the better fighter. He's a hard guy to knock out. If Robert Whittaker doesn't plan on wrestling this dude, then I hate to say it. And I told my daughter this yesterday because she asked me who I thought was going to win. I told her Adesanya. She's like, you love Whittaker. I said, I want Whittaker to win. In my heart, I know he can do it. My fear is, based on everyone who fights Adesanya, everybody wants to just right here, me and you, big guy. And it's like, don't do that. Bad game plan. You're going to get knocked out. It already happened to him. Don't do it again. Yeah. But I just don't see it. I think this goes an extra round, and that's it.
Yeah, but I mean,
is he going to win is a statement.
Yeah,
that's funny. Yes. Yes, sir.
I mean, yeah, there definitely is. I mean, Kelvin Gastelum was able to piece up Adesanya, but I understand that this is a completely different Adesanya.
Yeah, but again, dude, think about what Gastelum did. Gastelum didn't stand in the pocket, and I mean, they did at times, but when and think about when Gastelum stood in the pocket with Adesanya. Those were the worst moments of the fight for him.
Yeah.
Don't be in the pocket for too long. I mean, listen, fact of the matter is you have to because it's a UFC fight, right? I mean, you have to. You're at some point. My thing is don't stay there for too long. Don't get caught up in the moment. You're like, yeah, this is great because that could change in a heartbeat.
I said that a few weeks ago with my reach and stature, with my tail of the tape. If I'm ever on the inside trading punches, things have gone really, really, really bad for me. And that's got to be what you're thinking here when you're in that, is as long as I'm, far enough away not to get hit. Give him other things to think about. When you said, think about what Gastelum did, that's it. He had to think about all those other things. It wasn't sitting in the pocket and here comes the right hand and maybe a leg kick. It was a whole plethora of other things that he was doing that made him think, that created opportunities to hit him in the pocket, because you weren't just standing there trading in the pocket. And if that's got to be the plan here, but is he going to win?
And think about that. I mean, dude, when he got knocked out, Whittaker was in the midst of one of the best flurries of punches he threw in that fight.
Yeah.
I mean, he was bah, 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 bah. Like I'm saying, I think in his mind for like a second, he was like, yeah, I got this. And then all of a sudden, counter left and you're done.
Watch carefully the Anthony Joshua, John Ruiz one fight, and you'll see that a half dozen times. Joshua's, ooh, I got him. And then as soon as you start letting your hands go, that's when you're susceptible. Don't do that. Watch my wife Erica's fight. Twice she got hit hard. Both times it was boom, 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 started feeling herself. Yeah, whack. Oh, shit. Yeah, don't do that. And then backing up, walk into something. And that's got to be the plan, is to just all different kinds of make him not know what you're going to do next. Because if he gets to stand there and make a plan of what he's going to do next, you might be waking up. You might find your consciousness over in your corner with your coach. You've been separated. Yeah. You and your conscience haven't been getting along real well. If you just stuff like that, you guys might end up getting separated.
Yeah. But I do think this fight would be cool to see, a trilogy. But yeah, I think Adesanya is just better. It's just gonna get it done. I think it's close the book on Whittaker. But all right. I mean, it isn't just the Whittaker fight that's going on. KO John, the fight is 10 o'clock EST. There you go. But all right, it isn't just Israel Adesanya, Robert Whittaker. Let's get into some of the other fights. Fight of the night. Joe, what you got?
Oh, dude, it's Derek Lewis and Tai Tuivasa. That is going to be I wish they would put those two guys in one of those 30-foot cages, because that would be fun to watch. Just those two guys standing in the middle and just rock them, sock them until someone's head pops off. That would be awesome, And then either someone throws a cup into the stands or drinks beer from a shoe. Either way, it's going to be a great show. I'm super excited about this fight. Maybe, and I think I hope it doesn't end up being a snooze fest, which Derek Lewis can easily turn a fight into. I just don't think Tuivasa will allow that. I don't see it. I think that guy's just going to go for it, But yeah, I think that might be a better fight than the main event, or it's going to be an absolute dud.
It would be fun.
I gotta do the anti-Joe pick here. Plus 300 on over 2.5. If we end up with that snooze fest, tack that plus 300 to a couple other things for $1, because it could happen. Otherwise, that's going to be lightning.
It's not going to be a snooze fest.
Real quick, I know it's the co-main. Does anybody know? Are they going 3 or 5? It's only 3, not right?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah, he likes that, Lewis.
Yeah. I take Lewis in the fight. I really like Lewis there, for sure. I really like Izzy in the main event. My fight of the night, I think it's going to be a good fight. And I like it the way last week I didn't realize Barrios was coming up in weight to fight Thurman. I didn't realize how much bigger Thurman was going to be. As soon as I saw them and looked it up, I changed my pick to Thurman. Fast. At the same size, that's a good fight. Maybe edge to Barrios. That was Thurman. It's the same thing I'm feeling here with John Ryder and Danny Jacobs, not because he's bigger, just a better, more athletic, better fighter. Daniel Jacobs beats John Ryder, and you're getting real close money there at minus 160. So, Daniel Jacobs, fight of the night. Spoiler alert. Go ahead, Jace.
All right. Yeah. This is another gimme fight for Lewis. Yeah. You're not wrong, but I mean,
Greg Hardy thought he got a gimme fight too.
Yeah. Tai Tuivasa is wild. He first ever heavyweight to knock someone out with a flying knee. I think this is gonna be. I like the under in that fight.
You know what it is?
It's going to be the fight of the night. I think it's going to be a brawl.
Everybody loves Cyril Gane because he's sexy, right? He's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's athletic, right? He looks like one of the greatest fighting machines on the planet. And then you look at Tuivasa and you're like, ah. But you're right, Jace. I mean,
look at Daniel Cormier.
Again, Daniel Cormier, the fattest light heavyweight I've ever seen in my life.
Robert Nelson.
Yeah.
Robert Nelson's my friend's name. Roy Nelson. Yeah, Robert Nelson's like 5'7", 145. We call him Little Country. Roy Nelson is the guy I was looking for.
Little Country's great.
But yeah. It's gonna be that fight's gonna be fun. I mean, you also have Cannonier versus Brunson.
Well, I was gonna say that's basically that's the runner-up match. You're fighting the loser of the main event in 5 months from now. Is basically what's going on here.
That could be the next guy for the winner too, right? If Whittaker doesn't win, and then not a trilogy.
Yeah, well, listen, right? Let's say Izzy wins. You're right. Cannonier or Brunson obviously would have a chance if they put on a impressive performance with the champ in the building to get that fight next, which puts Strickland, like Jared was just suggesting, in a situation where you fight the loser, probably Whittaker, with a chance that your next fight puts you in line for the title shot, assuming you win. I like that.
Yeah.
I like that because I'll be honest, Cannonier or Brunson, Jared, to me, should be fighting for a title before Strickland.
Can we just make another division for all of these big guys that aren't really technically sound? Can the Lewises and the Brunsons and the Blades and where's the other over here? The minus 220 on the other, and the guys are 250. Jared Vandera and Andrei Arlovsky. Can we just throw all these guys in a vat and let them fight in another division? The big, the unskilled champion.
So Triller? You want them to sound with Triller?
Triller? Yeah, man. Oh, man.
I think if Cannonier beats Brunson and Adesanya beats Whittaker, I think Cannonier might be a more desirable title fight than I would say Strickland or really anybody else. Cannonier is one of the guys Adesanya hasn't fought yet, so he hasn't had a chance to beat him. So that'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's interesting. I'm excited. Should be a fun night of fights. Pretty stacked card. I'm excited. But all right. That's going to do it for the fights in the show today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Joe and Jared, for joining me today. Big shout out to Annie Mac Mortgage and JPEX Financial for sponsoring today's episode. Enjoy the fights, and we'll see you next week to talk more. Take care.
Throwing jabs, always full send. Here we go again. Jared, Joe, and Jay's Clovercrest, top three corner man, punching in with a puncher's chance. We find a way to win. The main event, locked it in every Saturday at 10. The overhand is out of hand when it comes to fisticuffs. Slide a hand on the undercard, you'll never see the punch. Uppercut got you missing weight, feet are stepping late. Keep your guard up, feeling faint from a feint. Take a stand and eight, then retaliate. Put up your duke, stick and move, bob and weave. Don't lose hope against the ropes, there's always an escape. Never stay down. One more round, bells ringing. Counter punch with your chin tucked and go down swinging. We bringing crosses with no worship, hooks with no verses, combinations with no locks. When you feel the flurry, it's curtains. From scrub scraps to fight stats, relax if you want the facts, cause the best combat podcast is Throwing Jabs.
Hello, my name is Joe Aguirre. I'm the president of Clovercrest Media Group. And here at CMG, we have a wide variety of podcasts, including sports shows like Keys to the City, The Roll Call, Throwing Jabs, All Four Downs, and Jawing About the G-Men. And great true crime shows like Sticky Meat, Crimes and Consequences, Ivy League Murders, and Bird, the unsolved murder of David Eichmann. You can find all these podcasts and so much more by visiting clovercrestmedia.com.